What's up, everybody? Peter Exodus O'Coffey here, and welcome to another episode of Classic Albums. Today, we're doing, according to Rolling Stone, the best album of all time, and I have to agree, Marvin Gaye's "What's Going On." Released May 21st, 1971. Here's some interesting information. The album only hits number 6 on the Billboard Top 100 at the time. And in the first 12 months of its release, it only sold 2 million copies. So it's not, this ain't a diamond seller. This isn't what, this didn't run out of the gates and just conquer the world right away. So in Rolling Stone's first top 500 albums of all time in 2003, this came in at number 6. And, the latest one is number 1. So, interesting backstory here. I about a year ago, I thought about doing this album, and for some reason, it just didn't come together. I couldn't just put together a good outline and what would be a good show. And I was working on an outline for another show, and Marvin Gaye's, name popped up and he was in there. And I was just like, because the problem for me is the album is so good, and in some ways it's a pretty simple album. It's just like, I have this phrase, sometimes the music speaks for itself. But thankfully, this time around, some other interesting tidbits and it just came together. So, backstory. Marvin Gaye was very close to Tammy Terrell. They did um, uh, some duets together, and she had a brain tumor and passed right before this. And Marvin was also uh, coming off his divorce with Anna Gordy, Berry Gordy, Motown's daughter. And, he's very depressed, and, he had cocaine and other habits going on. So that's the first thing, to keep in mind. He really, really is coming from a bad place, but, channels it to his music and into this album. The other very interesting thing about, and this is, if you've ever did any research on, what's going on, this isn't a secret, but Barry Gordy did not like the album, did not like this song. So he had this song at first, and Barry and his what would they call this committee at Motown? The quality control committee said, "Nah, this ain't." And Barry was like, "People don't want to do all this. They don't want to hear this political stuff." So this is what I didn't know. Marvin Gaye's like, "Bye, I'm on strike." And so finally, he relented, and I believe, while when What's Going On came out, this is at the time when Stevie Wonder is in New York City and doing Talking Book and Fulfilling This in Music of My Mind, and the other one is slipping my mind. He recorded all those and went back to because he just turned 18, and Barry also had him on his short release. Like, here's my next 4 albums. Release it or I'm take my business elsewhere. And I think, when Marvin went on strike, he essentially said, like, release this or I'm gone. And, wisely in both, situations, Barry came to his senses and released it because this album was getting released, regardless. So let's talk about the big 3 on the album briefly. Chart position. So What's Going On hit number 1, Mercy Mercy Me hit number 4, and Inner City Blues Makes Me Wanna Holler hit number 9 on the pop charts, the Hot 100. Yeah, so What's Going On was ranked number 4 all time in the Rolling Stones top 500 songs of all time. It's anti-war police brutality, street crime, domestic violence. It was against the Vietnam War, but just violence in general. It really has a strong message for it, and overall, this album just does not age. good and bad, it's still very relevant. I mean, uh, there's a lot of pain in this album. Unfortunately, a lot of the issues that he raises are still going on, but that's the power of the album. Um, the thing that makes the song special, I just love how he uses the strings in the song. I mean, that's the one thing um, that kind of comes out for me. For the most part, the powerful thing about this album is he's not really. I mean, outside the big three, he's not, doing using the verse chorus structure a lot. It is a little hip hopish, very pre hip hop, and it's just, you know, instruments doing their thing, and he does his thing. But it's a pretty big. I mean, he's not doing. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a music theory isn't my thing, but I don't, when I listen to stuff, it's not like, he's doing complicated stuff here. It's just very well done, good stuff. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's the strings, and for Mercy, Mercy Me. And again, 1971, he's talking about this, and here we are, um, still a few outliers, denying global warming, but you really can't, because the weather is getting crazier and crazier every year. And this is 1971. He's well ahead of the mainstream science community on this when he's talking about the environment. So Mercy, Mercy Me. Got some notes here. The big thing that it really sets the mood for me is the female background vocals is so good. I love the sax solo towards the end, and this is really technical, but it's mixed so well. I mean, there's a lot going. There's things there, but it's placed perfectly in the mix. So these other things that are really good that are going on in the song, it doesn't overpower the message of the song. And sometimes, as songwriters and stuff, you have to make sure that the music doesn't overpower the message. I mean, you know, I did Pimp a Butterfly by Kendrick Lamar, and Kendrick Lamar is very cognizant of not having the music um, overpower his message. Inner City Blues makes me want to holler. There's African percussion in here that's different. That's different from Motown, but it works. That's not the only song he used African percussion, and he also did it for Right On. Um, the other thing I love too is how his Marvin plays the piano on this, and his those chords are so haunting. Those piano chords at the beginning of the song, and then his piano playing at the end of the song. So I mean, people don't think of Marvin Gaye as a great piano player, but man, he hits it here. And again, this is about the hardship, but segregation was still very, very, very strong in 71 and or 70. I mean, it was released in May of 71. I'm sure part of the recording goes back to 70. And Detroit was one of the most segregated cities in America. So when I think of this album, even the first time I thought about doing a show, an episode on it, man, it's a jazz album, but it's a gospel album. And Marvin's dad, was a preacher, and so I mean, so it opens with What's Going On. Then they have a song, What's Happening, Brother. Then Flying High in the Friendly Sky. Save the Children. God is Love. Mercy, Mercy Me. The Ecology. Right On. Holy, Holy. So Holy, WHOLY. Holy, HOLY. And then Inner City Blues. And so he really brings, the titles, segue in very nicely as to, what he was dealing with and what he, in his personal life and how that is expressed in on the album. The other interesting thing on the album that I just realized, I mean, I got this album back in the '90s and college, is that there's very quick segues from one song to another. So it's almost like, each side is almost like, it's close to being suites and actually separate songs. So, going back to the songs though, Save the Children had the African percussion, not Right On, but Right On has that ratchet sound. Um, uh, Percussion sound, and it might be the Giro, Guiro, out of South America, because it's very similar to Steely Dan's uh, ratchet sound and Do It Again. So I know that Steely Dan used the Giro. I could not confirm whether, Right On uses the Giro. The other thing I really love about Right On is a pretty long song, too. It's over 7 minutes long, but as the song all goes on, I mean, Marvin sprinkles in some horns and then takes them quick out, and then sprinkles in some strings and then takes them out. And during the first half of the song, there's the sax player's like literally soloing as he's not the sax, the flute. The flute is soloing as he sings, and it works. And there's parts where he's singing, and then the flute and his piano players, I assume he plays piano here, but his piano playing and the flute are kind of, bouncing and playing off of each other. So Right On is really an underrated song. It's probably the most complex song on the album because of, just the taking and the dropping of things out. But yeah, this album is it's number one, on that Rolling Stone all time chart for a reason. Here's the power of this album is nobody, I mean, everybody, you know, his peers and musicians, you know, nobody's raised a stink about this being number one. I mean, and remember, even in 2003, it was number six. So, Paul McCartney, Mick Jagger, they haven't said anything publicly. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, Marvin Gaye's a genius, but even, Pete Townsend and Keith Richards, Gene Simmons, Ted Nugent. I mean, none of them have, this is such a good work that, everybody, you know, at least, look, they might have, maybe this should have been number one, but, or this is my favorite or whatever. But, they're all in this kind of like, hey, I can't argue with it. I mean, yeah, you can argue there could be other ones there, but it belongs in the mix. I think, Prince passed in 2016, so when they did the new list, Prince wouldn't have argued with this. I don't think Michael Jackson would have argued with this. So, I mean, the album has the power where even, everybody's at peace and can deal with the fact that, Rolling Stone put this at number one all time. So, yeah. Love the cover too. I mean, he's out, it's that black leather coat. It's probably early spring, but there's that with the flecks of snow, on the coat. Iconic cover, iconic album. Um, I mean, obviously, Let's Get It On is his other big album, but this one, man, it's still relevant, as I said, and you know, first and foremost, it's a gospel album, but it has a really nice jazz feel. So, I mean, jazz is about freedom, and the issues he raises are still we're still dealing with them today. So, you know, listen to the album. We've all heard the big three, but I mean, it's a beautiful album, and the themes of the other songs. I mean, they may not be as you know pack the power of the big three, but it all it worked, the themes of those other songs enhance the big three and make the album what it is. So, anyway, yeah. So, in the close out here, is that I have not been doing this, but I need you to hit the like button. I need you to subscribe to the channel. That helps me, move me up the YouTube algorithm. I got 5 albums of my own on this YouTube channel and on all the streaming services, and I also have 2 science fiction fantasy novels and a novella on Amazon under Peter Exodus Okafor, and my music is under the name Exodus. So thank you again, and see you next episode.